I decided to install cameras inside and outside my house after what happened. My dad was not into technology. He never liked cameras at home. He barely watched TV, except for some movies now and then. He preferred to relax with his scotch, his cigarette, and his book. But this house is mine now, and I needed to upgrade it with cameras. And I made sure that only our close friends knew about them, and they promised not to tell anyone else. And they kept their word. A few weeks passed, and I didn't hear anything from my mother or sister, except for what my sister posted on social media. She was always whining about living in our mother's basement, and I bet she was making our mother's life hell. But then I got a surprising call from my sister. She said that her boyfriend was doubting if he was the father of her baby, and he wanted to leave her unless she did a paternity test. My sister swore to me that she never cheated on him. I wanted to believe her, but I had some doubts, because our mother cheated once and our father questioned if we were his kids too. So I told them to do the DNA test. But my sister said they were broke. I agreed to pay for it, but only if she didn't ask me for money or favors too often. She accepted right away. I arranged the test and paid extra to get the results faster, but it would still take a few days. I had never met my sister's boyfriend, but when I did, I started to see things more clearly. He was half Hispanic, and my mother, who was secretly racist, got that from my grandparents. I decided to try and talk to him and invited him for a beer, and he opened up to me. He said that my mother had been telling him that my sister was just like her, and that she had cheated before, so maybe my sister did too. This made him have more and more doubts every day, and he said he wasn't sure if my sister didn't get pregnant on purpose to trap him and stop working. She only had a small online sales job. Sadly, I thought he was probably right about that. But he also said that my sister was a different person when she was not around our mother. But since they moved into mom's basement, she acted more and more like a child. I believed him after what I saw at my house. So I asked him if he suggested she get therapy. He said he wanted to, but he didn't have the money, and he had been careful around her and our mother for a while. So he never brought it up. Well, that made me feel some brotherly feelings I didn't know I still had, because I realized that if I was going to have a niece or nephew, I couldn't let them live with or be raised by my mother. So I did the only thing I could think of. I told him that if the DNA results were positive, I'd give him a job and training at the company I now own. He agreed right away because he hated living with my mother as much as he could. The day finally arrived when the DNA test results were supposed to be in the mail, but my sister told me that she didn't get them. I asked her who checked the P.O. box, and she said it was our mother. That made me suspect that she was trying to get rid of my sister's boyfriend. I didn't trust our mother at all, so I had asked the clinic to send another copy of the DNA results to my place as well. And they did arrive that same day. I called my mother and confronted her about the DNA test results. This is more or less how the conversation went since I didn't record it. Hi, Mom. I found out that Sis didn't receive the DNA test in the mail today. Oh, yes, but maybe they'll come soon. Did you take them? I know they were delivered today because I paid for priority mail. What? How can you accuse me of such a thing? I would never. All right then. I guess I'll just bring over the backup copy that I got. Backup copy? Yeah, I got one too on the same day because I paid for it. Sis agreed to it and everything. I guess I'll just call her and we'll meet up. Stop. There's no need. Click. I hung up and called my sister right away. I picked up my sister and her boyfriend from my mother's house and drove to a nearby diner. And there we opened the envelope together. The test results confirmed that he was the father. My sister's boyfriend was so overjoyed that he proposed to her on the spot. And she said yes, over and over again. I was looking forward to seeing my mother's reaction when she heard the news. But what happened next was truly shocking. When I took my sister back home, her and her boyfriend's belongings were being thrown out onto the lawn by some strangers. My sister stopped in her tracks with a look of horror on her face. Our mother came storming out of the house with the DNA test results that she claimed never came and started yelling at my sister. How could you have a baby with that racial slur? I thought you were just going through a stupid phase with him, but now you're going to have his baby and marry him. I might have tolerated having his little brat around if you weren't raising it in my house, and racial slur wasn't here anymore. Pointing at sister's boyfriend, sister. But mommy, Mom. No buts, young lady. I order you to get rid of that little word I do not want to use in your belly right now or get out of my house. Then she turned to me and snapped her fingers and said, and you should be ashamed of yourself. I tried to make this family normal, but you wouldn't listen to me like a good son should. And now you've ruined everything. You're all a bunch of racial slur. Meanwhile, my sister was on her knees on the grass and holding her belly, sobbing, "I can't! I can't!" My mother then actually grabbed my sister's hair and was about to hit her, but I gave her a stern look and she stopped and lowered her arm. Then she just let out a loud snarl and went back into her house screaming, "She's your problem now, Craigle. I don't have any children anymore." That night, I arranged a hotel room for my sister and her boyfriend until a real estate agent who was a friend of my lawyer found them an apartment as soon as possible. And I kept my promise and gave sister's boyfriend a job. He was new and had to start from the bottom, but he was a fast learner. It would take some time, but I would help him get a better position, and he was very grateful to work for me. My sister was now in therapy covered by my company's insurance and had already begun to act more grown up than I had ever seen her. She stopped calling our mother mommy and even started to talk about her the way I did. She came to me recently and said she was working harder now, and she admitted I was right about her being a lazy leech. And she said she would work hard to be a good mother and provider for her child. Her therapist seemed to really be helping her. My sister is filled with regret now. She confessed to me in tears that she wishes she had apologized to our father before he died. I have more stories to share to show why I always knew my sister was a victim of our mother's narcissism. But I resented her for how she treated me when we were kids, and I stopped trying to help her with anything. But now that we're both adults and she's free from our mother for good, I can finally help her become a better person. I already like my future brother-in-law a lot. He's hung out with me a few times since he started working for me. He also speaks fluent Spanish, and that has helped with some customers a few times. He is a great employee. As for my mother, well, she actually drove to my house in broad daylight when no one was home and smashed several of my front windows with big rocks that she had in a metal bucket. And the rocks had racial slurs written all over them. But thanks to the cameras I installed, she was caught easily. I gave the footage to the police that same day. I didn't bother to ask for repayment for the damages she caused. The windows were old anyway, and it just gave me an excuse to remodel. But I pressed charges and got a restraining order. She can't come within 500 feet of me or my property. She also took a big hit online as I had a dashcam in my car that recorded everything my mother said, and did that evening she kicked my sister out. And this time I showed it to the rest of the family. And my sister also told pretty much the same story on her Facebook. That pretty much destroyed my mother's image on her side of the family. So she's not really talking to any of them anymore. My mother was never good at planning. She had some grand idea that if my sister had a house to herself, then she wouldn't need her baby's father around, and she could survive working part-time. But I shattered that dream. She didn't lose her job or anything because I didn't go that far. She's not set to retire for another decade or so. But some of her more petty relatives started submitting fake bad reviews for her Airbnb, and now she's probably losing customers. She's a manipulative narcissist. That's why I never let my guard down when she's involved. She used to know that better. But after years of no contact after she and my dad divorced, I guess she somehow forgot. When she slapped me, it was the first time she touched me since I was 14. Back then, I stood up to her and she threw a tantrum because neither I nor my father let her spank me anymore. She's someone who can't live without control of others. Now she pretty much has no one to boss around. My mother got what she deserved. But I wonder if it's really over or if she's going to try something again. I have a mole on the inside, so to speak. A cousin from my mother's side of the family. She's one of the few relatives who still visit my mother. And the last time she checked, my mom was pretty depressed and looked like a shell of her former self. But I don't feel any guilt for that. So I'm ready if she decides to try and do something to make herself so pitiful that the rest of the family starts feeling sorry for her. I won't care what she does. And my sister probably won't either. My mother made her metaphorical bed with dirty sheets. Now she can lie in her own filth. If you like our stories, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on the bell notification to get the next story updates.